Oh, hey, I'm Emily, and this is my best friend Rachel.
Hey, I'm Rachel, and in 2010, aged 18 and fresh out of secondary school,
we went on a gap year, travelling to 5 countries in 5 months.
Shockingly, it didn't always go so well. We lost passports,
ran out of money,
jumped out of aeroplanes,
and landed ourselves in endless ridiculous scenarios.
But what we also managed to do is write a blog about our experiences.
And without smartphones or Instagram at our disposal, this blog is the only record we have of the trip of our young lives.
And 11 years on, we're reliving it all by reading back over our diary entries for your listening pleasure.
Welcome to the Gap Year Diaries podcast.
Oh, hey. Hey, Emily.
Oh, it's beginning.
It is.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-trip prologue episode of the Gap Year Diaries podcast. Quite an exciting time for us.
I'm well excited.
I can see. I can see that you are. I'm also excited, but I'm less of an expressive individual. It's April 2021, Rachel.
Somehow. It is, and we're currently still, in vague lockdown. That's the context of where we're at.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am arguably more in lockdown than you. Rachel, would you like to explain to the good people why you are less in lockdown so that it doesn't come across like you're a flagrant lockdown denier?
Yeah, I do not want to give that first impression. So basically, I have been living in Thailand for the last 4 years, and I'm due back in the UK in a couple of months. But in Thailand, there's just some different lockdown rules, different quarantine rules out here than there is in the UK, which is where you're currently residing in.
I am residing like a little creepy little hermit, still in my, well, not still. I am currently at my mother's residence in rural Essex. Mama J. Although not for long. I was about to say thankfully, but that sounds very ungrateful. But I am imminently moving back to London, where I was forced to flee during the first wave of the pandemic. But yes, I am in the UK, so we have actually just had some lockdown restrictions lifted, so it's feeling hopeful in the air.
Hopeful. Yeah, that's great for you. That's great how you've done it. I mean, I was locked away for about 3 days and I was like, I've had it, I'm going shopping. How you've done it for like months and months, and everyone else in the UK who've done it. You're all my heroes. Genuine.
That's very sweet.
That's okay.
That's a sweet little message. Thanks, Rachel.
That's okay.
But yeah, so it's April 2021 and we have got together to film this episode because there is a lot of sort of background context to this famous gap year trip that we thought it might be good to just get out there in the world, so that it's recorded and that people who are interested can listen, but it doesn't kind of get in the way of the normal podcast. That was the thinking behind it. So I think Rachel has come up with the really quite ingenious, and I think more ingenious the more you think about it, phrase of a context sponge, which is what we're aiming for with this episode.
Yeah, so it basically came about because when we did the first recording, we were just chatting about, how we got to the gap year. We were trying to throw in too much context, and in the end we didn't really say anything of value after an hour of recording the first one. So we were like, that is no good. So we thought, okay, let's just put a special episode together, as Emily said, to kind of give a bit of a background info, so you're all informed. And there's a couple of questions that we're going to ask each other, just so you as a listener can get your bearings. So yeah, that's a very good way of explaining it. We're just going to go into things like why we decided to go on the gap year, how we prepared, and just bits and bobs like that, really. So look forward to that. Maybe hopefully inspire anyone else, like post lockdown. I don't know. We'll see.
We shall see. That's yet to be determined. Okay, let's launch in. Do you?
Okay, so it's me to ask you the first question, Emily. First question is, why did we decide to go on a gap year? Why did you decide to go on a gap year? How would you answer that question?
I was trying to think of my answer to this question, to do a bit of uncharacteristic pre-prep for this. And the honest answer is that I was afraid of going to uni. I know, what an absolute loser. I think it was, I was scared by the notion of just going straight to uni from school. And for some reason, I thought a less scary thing to do would be to like pack up a bag and just go off around the world at the young age of 18. I thought that to me seemed more achievable. So yeah, it was a fear of the age-old institution of university that encouraged me to pursue this alternative option, which is quite ridiculous really when you think about it. But yeah, that was my main motivation. But also I mean, it's hard not to be cliche, but I mean, no shade on mum and dad, but our like childhood holidays of like camping in the south of France, which was fantastic, but hadn't really like given me the sort of like it hadn't really fulfilled my sense of wanderlust. Despite the fact that, you know, I'm incredibly grateful for those experiences, and I loved going abroad as a child, and we went to a school that was very big on exchange trips. Intercultural, very true. So I think maybe it was like a thirst for a world outside what I knew, which was rural suburban Essex. Rural is more apt for you because you grew up in literally the middle of nowhere.
I did literally need to learn how to drive when I was 17 ASAP, so I could, you know, gain the independence. But anyway, we are sidetracking slightly.
Sorry.
No, that is a strong answer. Thank you.
Why did you decide to go on a gap year, Rachel?
A few reasons. I was quite inspired by, because me and my sister are the youngest cousins, so we just watched our cousins just always do those life steps first before me and Emma. I mean, Emma always classically joked, as soon as I turn 18 no one's going to care because everyone's already done that. But my cousin went to Australia, and I had another cousin that went to Costa Rica, and that sounded amazing. And New Zealand was something that my friend went to that I was really quite inspired to go to. So that was one quite big reason. I'd watched others do it. And then we had, do you remember at school, we had the chapel, and they had this talk that came in about, you know, what it's like to go on a gap year. And I was really inspired by this chat. I mean, I walked up being like, let's go on a gap year now. And my boyfriend at the time was like, no, I don't have enough money. And that was it.
Genuinely
do you remember
have
that
no
chat?
Recollection of this whatsoever.
Do you really not remember? She
No.
had like her own board and little PowerPoint presentation in the chapel.
If it's not coming across strongly, Rachel and I went to school together. And the chapel, we had a chapel in our school, and the chapel was where a lot of kind of, I think it was like an overspill classroom almost, wasn't it? Like a lot of talks took place in the chapel. Often they were like, I remember I used to have a regular science lesson in the chapel, which I found, you know,
Really?
to be quite a sort of humorous contradiction. But I don't remember this talk that you refer to, but I'm sure it was life-changing.
It was a life-changing talk, and it was meant to be me, you and our friend Amy that were all going to go on it, like as a 3. And do you remember we all went for the same job, and we were all like, let's bundle our money up together, and like that just doesn't make any sense looking back. And we all agreed to do this, but it didn't go anywhere. And then it was me and you that went.
Just the two of us, somehow we made it through. But so your answer is a much more sort of inspirational one.
So Emily, how did you save for the gap year?
Well, I mean, I think it's worth saying that we did factor in a good amount of time for us to save the money to go on this gap year. Because I don't know if this is news to anyone, but worldwide travel is pricey. I know that's a bit of a bombshell to you all, but it costs you. So I think we deliberately set aside quite a number of months, didn't we, to save our money before we left, because we were like, there's no way it's going to happen unless we knuckle down.
And we did, right?
It was a hard knock life for us. I got 2 jobs at the local branch of Fat Face. Yeah. Big advertisement there for Fat Face.
Are we allowed to do this? We're just going to rock on anyway.
Proud purveyor of middle-aged fleeces and gilets. I was just about to say that maybe Fatface could sponsor this podcast, and then I said something like that. So,
oh my god,
that's burn that
hey,
bridge.
Fatface, burn that bridge to the ground.
Burn the bridge. Yeah, so I worked at Fatface, which Rachel also did. So I worked at Fatface, and then I also had a job at a very sort of like village branch of the co-op, which was an experience, and there's many stories for that, but I won't go into those right now. So I used to, it was such a life for me as an 18-year-old. I used to work pretty much full time at Fatface. Obviously, Fatface closed at 6:00. And then my mum, bless her, used to drive to Fatface, pick me up, and I used to, in the back of the car, change out of my Fatface clothes into my co-op uniform with my little name tag.
Yeah, I forgot you
my
had
little
that
badge
journey.
that was like, I have to ask you if you're under 25 about very aggressive badge. And then I did evening shifts at the co-op for like 5 hours pretty much every day as well. So it was quite a time for me.
I do remember you shared this story about a strawberry, something about like 5p off a strawberry, and it became this huge thing, and you just were like, why are people so obsessed with a 5p voucher? But
this is ringing zero bells, but I'm sure it's one of many ludicrous tales from my time at the village branch of the co-op. There was one customer who used to come in and just take, I say customer, there was one man who used to come into the co-op on a daily basis, and he used to just take sandwiches from the fridge and just walk out.
What kind of
with
sandwiches?
Them. I mean, is that important, Rachel? I believe they were
I'm keen to know.
I don't know. I never saw. But yeah, he took them out. And then I remember my first time seeing this, I sort of like flagged it to my supervisor, like, excuse me, this man is just taking a sandwich. Like, I was literally ready to like run out the door and like rugby tackle him to the floor.
Oh my God, the idea of you rugby tackling someone.
Just the idea of me rugby tackling anything is ludicrous. But my supervisor was like, oh yeah, that's Crazy Dave. And I was like, oh
right.
And she was like, he does that. And I was like, so we tolerate theft from people who have crazy in their name. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay.
So that's just one of many stories, but I won't go down that rabbit hole because that's not why we're here. Rachel, tell us about how you saved for the gap year.
Well, I had. I worked loosely as a tutor for maths for a student. Loosely.
That's how you want your tutor to work.
Yeah, like once a week. Then I worked in Fatface, so hey, we sometimes share some shifts, the retail branch. Then I worked for the ye old sweet shop. I don't know if anyone knows that branch, but we have one in our hometown, Stortford. Then I also worked in Sainsbury's in the freezer aisle, and it was great for me because I suffer with Raynaud's. My hands get like super cold, so that was a very painful job for me. Then I worked as a waitress in a cafe, and then I also worked as a in Boots Opticians, and I worked the machinery to check people's eyes, and that was kind of cool. That was kind of my favourite job to do.
Such a wide gamut of employment that you had. I love how they let you just check people's eyes, zero medical training, that's fine, and then off you go to the freezer.
Yeah, I think I remember our friend James said to me once, like, do you just own this Stortford street now? It's just yours.
Yeah, it's bowling down the street.
Yeah, literally in so many different uniforms. Business that
kind of like a
sort of spy or something. Yeah, so I was earning coin. I believe coin is a phrase that the young'uns say. Bitcoin. I remember, I know this isn't quite the question, but I said, Mum, I'm going on a gap year, and she's like, that's lovely, sweetheart. And until I started to defer uni and was applying for these jobs, it was until she was on the phone to a friend, and she was like, yes, I think Rachel is going on a gap year. I knew that at that point she believed me. It was like 4 months in.
I think my mum had a similar sort of like airy-fairy reaction of like, okay, if
just
you want to, like, just absolutely zero concern for my future, just like, all right then, see you tomorrow, as she dropped me off at the co-op for yet another shift of Crazy Dave. So well, we were deep in the sort of panic of like, oh my God, are we going to earn enough money to actually do all the things we want to do on this gap year? Rachel and I did, and I've just discussed this with Rachel off mic, and she doesn't remember this, but it's seared into my mind for some reason. Maybe you weren't there, but I'm 100% sure you were. We went to our local branch of, because when I said this to Rachel, she went, which branch? Like, you've been to every job centre up and down the country. Which
No, was
maybe
it
you have.
Saffron? What? I don't know why it's like Saffron. No, it would have been
Bishop
Stortford.
Obviously.
Where even is the job centre in Stortford?
It's down by, oh God. The thing is, I've not been to Stortford in such a long time that all my frames of reference have closed down. So it was like what used to be DJ's shoe shop, where we used to go and get our leather loafers for school. I don't know if you recall.
I went to Clark's.
Oh, of course. My mistake. Yeah, it's near the Nissan garage. Is that still there?
Oh, okay,
Garage.
down by the sort of church where I went to youth club on a Friday.
Oh yeah, where I used to
remember
get brownies on a Thursday. Yes, yes, that's where it was. But we went in together, and I remember we just sat across the desk from this guy, and he was like, so how can I help you? And we were like, we need to earn some money to go on a gap year. And he was obviously like not used to this.
The privilege makes me feel sick, like,
I mean, he
just
was
coming in and saying
at us
that.
like, what the fuck are you doing in my job centre? Like, he was literally like so sort of, there was such disdain, and quite rightly so. I mean, what little pricks we were. Like,
yeah, we really were.
But I remember he did find us this very strange, dubious gig, I want to call it, where it was like a night shift working at, like, you know, Molten Brown, who make the like
the
bubble
I want to
bath
say
and stuff.
soaps. Yeah.
Their factory is quite nearby, and I think he found us like work, like there was potential that we could do work there, but we'd have to work at the dead of night for some unknown reason. And I think at first we were super keen because the money was really good, but then when we thought it through, we were like, our literal parents are going to have to like drive us to and from this graveyard shift.
But I don't think we would have been very good as factory workers. I don't think we would have been able to have hacked it, honestly. No.
It would have been quite a hilarious start to our gap year adventure, but nonetheless, I'm not sure we would have I think we'd have done our darned best.
Yeah, I think we would have done our best. And kind of talking about all these jobs, we were both 18 at the time, and all of our friends were going off to uni. So it was quite a lonely experience doing this. Do you remember that? Like, you didn't spend your money on anything, did we? Like, going to the pub once a week and me getting probably like a Coke because I had to drive home was the highlight of about a year.
It was a lonely old year. It served us well in preparation for lockdown. But yeah, it was literally all I did was these 2 shifts that were just like day, night, sleep, repeat. And it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world, because obviously, you know, working in Fat Face is pretty cushy. Like, there were nice colleagues. There were often like celebrations, as in like the suites, not the actual events, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, everyone we worked with was actually really sound. Like, I remember like getting on well with a lot of my colleagues.
Yeah, there was a good work
from all the jobs,
from every last job,
from every job. Yeah. Anyway, shall we move on to the next question?
I think it's best that we do, because we have avoided on that question for many, many minutes. So the next question is, Rachel, why did you choose the particular countries that we went to? What spurred your interest in those countries?
I think this is such a short answer, but I couldn't help but having a little look at your answers, and you said a PC game, and then this old PC game that I used to play like bounded into my head, of like a guy in Egypt, even though we didn't go to Egypt, but it was just, you know, a really basic pixelated game of, you went around the world and collected things and you saw images of things. It's kind of like an encyclopedic game. Cheers, Dad. That
I think it's the
just
same
game
that I was
it might have been. It would have been quite cool if it was. So there was that, and as you mentioned before, our school was really quite into the whole interculturalism, and just, you think it was, I don't know, just it felt really exciting to go away. I think New Zealand was on my list. I don't know why it was New Zealand and not Australia. I can't give a reason for that. And Costa Rica, because my cousin went there and it seemed amazing. And then it was just very much volunteering. I knew I wanted to work with animals. That was really important to me, and we did, which was incredible. But then you kind of, you had your things that you wanted to do, and I just remember being like, yeah, that sounds great, I want to go and do that. I think I was quite open to a lot of your suggestions. It's like, yeah, it sounds amazing.
I mean, at this point maybe we should just
I think
like
you're
actually lay out the route,
just
so that people know where we did go. Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
So,
you go.
So the route we took was we started off in Costa Rica
in March 2010.
In March 2010, thank you. And then we spent about a month and a bit there, and then we moved on to Peru, and we were there for a similar amount of time. Then we travelled through Peru into Chile and travelled through Chile for a bit less time. I think it was more like 3 weeks or something.
I think it was about 3 weeks, yeah.
And then we hopped over to New Zealand and were there for longer than we anticipated.
6 weeks, wasn't it?
I think it was something like that, yeah. It was maybe pushing 2 months. Our original plan was to go from New Zealand to Thailand. But at the time of travelling, we had to change our plans whilst we were out there because, Rachel, you know more about this as a basically a Thai national.
Yeah, so basically what happened in 2010, there was a lot of political unrest as the military is military governed, and there was a coup that tried to overthrow it, and it became very charged, very violent, and there were the red shirts against the yellow shirts, and yeah, there were fires that were breaking out, there were, people were killed. It was quite frightening, and it was at that point that our parents even stepped in and said, hey, we know you're going to Thailand, but would you mind not going? And it was quite an easy decision.
Would you mind
we said
just not going to Thailand?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, well, I say it's absolutely fine now. There were some protests a few months ago, but not to the same scale, and we've been fine. We're fine.
Yeah. Everyone's fine. So we were going to go to Thailand, but we changed our plans at the last minute and ended up staying in New Zealand for a bit longer, and then we finished off with about a week or so in Singapore on our way home. Yes, so as you said, I think little computer games played a huge role in my wish list of travel destinations. For some reason I had this real desire to go to Machu Picchu. I had absolutely no idea what it was as a child. I barely understood the concept of ancient civilizations and what have you, as much as the computer game had tried to educate me. But I just liked what I saw in the computer game, and I was like, yeah, that looks all right, let's go there, let's head on up to Machu Picchu. So that was like my key place that I wanted to go.
Yeah,
and then
it inspired me.
Yeah, well, I made you play the computer game and you were hooked. And then we went to Costa Rica to volunteer with sea turtles.
They were the leatherback ones, and they were wonderful.
Yeah, they were super lovely.
They were.
And Chile, I think it was because, obviously borders Peru, and we were like, it'd be quite cool to hop on in since we're there, and we'll travel through, and it was a more convenient place to fly to New Zealand from, so we thought we might as well factor that in. And then New Zealand was your sort of like childhood dream destination.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, that kind of reminds me, as you call, we were a skiing family. That was what you literally coined me one day.
Rachel's family were a skiing family.
My
family was not a skiing family. That's all I have to say.
So I've been skiing since I was 6, and I'm like an average skier. I'm scared of going too fast. And I remember just having this vision of taking Emily skiing, and it excited me so much. I just wanted to get her on a pair of skis and go up. But that was
purely for your own entertainment that you wanted.
It was
to
half for my purely own entertainment. I just love the idea of you being
70%.
on a pair of skis. And you forgot to mention the NASCAR lines.
Oh my god, yes, I did.
Yeah.
The second Peruvian attraction that had ensnared me in was so for those that don't know, the Nazca lines are these really fascinating ancient markings that are in the Peruvian Nazca desert, and they were made, well, we don't know, this is the thing, we know very little about them or why they were made or who made them or how long ago. I mean, probably more than I'm making out here. Obviously I am not an expert, but I know that we don't know for sure why or how they were made, but they are these gigantic lines that form really clear pictures when you see them from above. And they were part of this. I still don't know the name of this PC game. I think it was like DK Multimedia Explorer or something.
I honestly think I had a game that was so similar to that.
The most lame game ever. But it was like you travel around the world and you collected like stickers or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Anyway,
And
carry on.
yeah, the Nazca lines were in that too, and those teamed with Machu Picchu, I was like, wow, this country has got some real good shiz. I really want to see it. So
no, I'd never heard of the Nazca lines. I clearly missed that bit in the game, but you explained it to me and it just sounded really cool. I mean, I just thought everything sounded cool. With Thailand, how did that get in the mix? How did we think about going there? I think it was elephants, because they're your favourite animal. And I remember thinking, well, elephants sound great. And I think I will admit, guys, audience, I did want to ride one. I'm not going to lie about that. I did want to ride one, but obviously now my morals are not to ride elephants, not to take them from a tourist perspective at all. I'm very much for sanctuaries and so on. And disclaimer, do not ride. Is it disclaimer? I'll start that bit again. Just a warning, don't ride them. That's all I have to say. That's all right.
It's good to have that educational element. Yeah. Rachel, how would you say that we prepared for our gap year?
Badly. No, that's not quite fair to say. I actually think we were more on the detailed orientated side. I mean, we visited, okay, so back in the day there was a branch called STA, which stood for, wasn't it like student travel? What was it stood for?
I assume
STA.
association
Could have been that. And it was, the nearest branch to us was in Cambridge. So we just, got on a train, got up to Cambridge and pestered this poor man with endless questions. Because back in those days, you could only Google so much, and you did need someone there to kind of give you a hand and
to how much you could
give
Google.
kind of give you tours. And instead of going off the internet, sometimes it's quite nice to speak face to face to someone. And we just came with oh my God, the questions. We had a booklet full of these questions. I don't think the guy was ever trained for the amount of questions we had.
I think we used to go there and we would sit there for, like, no joke, about 5 hours at a time.
It did feel like that. It did feel like that.
I think it was that. I don't think it even just felt. I think the reality was it was 5 hours. And we would just be like, hello, we want to go here, and here. Blah, 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 blah. Here's about 6 bazillion questions. And yeah, you're right, this poor guy.
Oh my God, do you remember
like
trying to do the flight? And the flight had to be a certain amount of miles. Do you remember that? And there was like a limit, and you could not go a mile over that limit. So our round the world ticket had to hit all these markers. Yeah, I think he got us into Thailand. I think he did, because I remember feeling really amazed by all the colours.
Yeah, I think so. But we used to go, I think we went probably about 4 or 5 times in the stage before we actually went travelling. We would go to STA and sit down with this, I think it was mainly the same guy. I don't know how he managed to be so unfortunate as to get us every single time.
Yeah, he did really well. Shout out to that guy if he finds this podcast.
Clearly we don't remember his name even after spending quite so many hours with him.
He was so nice though. He was so patient with us, and he really was like very, very helpful. He was a brilliant employee. So we did that. And then we were lucky enough to have a shop. I think it's closed down now, though. It was called Nomads. And it was just like this travelling shop in Stortford. And it sold
one of the few shops
everything.
in Stortford that Rachel did not work in.
But it did sell everything from like rucksacks to small little like unknown gadgets that seemed super important to buy at the time. And I do remember going in there with my mum and dad. We got the rucksack, we got the important things, but it came down to the coat. We knew we were going to go to the jungle, and I thought I would need a coat that, I'm not kidding, was like a sleeping bag. It was huge, and I was wearing it, and I just looked like a little worm, like with this thing on, with this long trail. And the guy he was selling it was clearly like, I didn't think we'd ever get this sold. And my mum
had to dust it out from the stock room, like,
thing. And my
guys, it's happening. Someone's gonna finally buy the super coat.
My mum was like delicately trying to say, Rachel, I'm not sure how much you're going to need this. What about in the city environment? In the end, I never got it, but I really thought I was losing out, but no, I wasn't. Instead, I've still got it. I've got this like coat that wrapped up into a little ball, and it was pink. Do you remember that? You must remember the pink coat.
Since you wore it with every single bloody day of the entire trip.
I did. It kept me very, very warm and dry.
I think you wore it to a club once.
I actually think I did. Oh my God. Oh, the fashion. Right, though, Emily, we are going to talk about the fashion on the trip when we get into the podcast, because there are some absolute humdingers with fashion.
Some howlers.
Oh God.
But, that shop Nomads
was
like, I think it was just because, like, you know, nowadays if you were going to buy all this stuff, you would just go on Amazon or whatever, or like
like a normal person.
You wouldn't be quite so quite such a, you know, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, you would go online and you would probably buy stuff from like Mountain Warehouse or what have you. We make it sound like we were living in a time where there was no internet. Obviously there was internet, but Rachel and I
But it wasn't really on our
like,
phones back then. It wasn't. It was more
you
on a
had
computer.
to fire up the family Windows 95 in order to like log on. It wasn't quite dial up. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't dial up.
But it was more of an ag than it is now. So I think going to actual shops was like, we dedicated time to basically like solving these problems of like, what will we need to buy to go on this trip. And I remember going to Nomads, and of course the victory was that we ended up not buying this coat, which was a relief to all apart from the sales assistant.
Yeah, you got a lot of money from us though.
Oh my god, yes, I was going to say, but that was like the one thing that, like, one of very few things in that shop that we didn't end up buying that we absolutely did not need. The most salient example of this is I think we came out of that shop with water purification tablets. Like, who the hell did we think we were? Like Bear Grylls, like stranded on an island, like planning which one of us we'd eat first. Like, what in the world were we thinking?
I don't know.
I think like it was just unnecessary on every level. We bought those. We bought those like camel bags, I think they're called, or camel packs. You know, those like water things that have like the straw that go. Things that people are doing like bloody expeditions to buy. Rachel and I were like, yeah, we'll definitely need this in the hostels of like San Jose. Yeah, definitely. Absolute morons. We spent so much money. God. We wasted so much time, and we had all this stuff in our rucksacks the whole time we were travelling, just in a little like pile, didn't we? That was just like
at the bottom. It got lower and lower and lower down at the bottom, like sediment.
Disintegrated. Yeah, it's like rubble by the end. Just unnecessary AF. So that was the preparation of like the actual sort of materialistic things that we needed.
Well, your mum, when packing, Emily, that story of the bikini top always makes me laugh.
Oh my god, I don't remember it.
Oh my god, you do.
Why don't I remember anything?
Okay, so Mama J said, Emily, like, think about the weight, and you were like, yeah, no, okay, here's you know, packing a very thin bikini, and your mum was like, we need to take the padding out of this bikini.
I mean, to be fair, why did I think I needed a padded bikini anyway? Like, it's not Pamela Anderson, but like, yes, my mum was like, every last ounce of weight needs to be refined, and I was like, Mum, we're not doing like climbing Kilimanjaro for comic relief, like, let's calm down.
Even though we nearly bought a coat thinking we were, but come on.
I mean, it was a mess, basically. We didn't know what we were doing. One thing I do remember that I think is just absolute gold is when your mum made us do a self-defense class.
Oh, yeah.
Do you recall? And it happened in the mean streets of Rachel's living room. We pushed her like incredibly plush sofas to one side and took our shoes off so that we didn't mark the beautiful rug. And then we got down to some serious self-defending.
Yeah, we did. And I remember your classic phrase was, Rachel, you're freakishly strong for how tiny you are.
Rachel is freakishly strong. I've always thought this, and I've never wavered from that belief, whereas I'm freakishly weak. We differ in stature in that Rachel's very small and I'm quite tall, but both of us are like, we differ in strength quite wildly. So when we were paired up in the self-defense class, it was not like for like, I would say.
I just, wasn't it you that were like, I feel like I've got spaghetti arms, and I just remember that really well.
I mean, it was a joke. I think the man teaching us was like, okay.
No, it was a female. It was a woman. It was a really short, like, okay. No, it wasn't, really tiny little compact lady that was lovely. Oh my gosh, she was such a sweetheart. But yeah, she would just like throw out these moves. The one lesson I remember though was standing up really straight and almost having like a T shape. Do you remember, like shoulders back, like straight back?
I don't remember. I feel like I don't remember any of this.
Was it
maybe
one of
we
our
went
friends
on different gap years?
Yeah, maybe.
No, I do vaguely remember. I think I think I just was a little brat and I just didn't take it seriously enough, because it was an absolute fair enough thing for your mum to do. Like,
it was very good of her to put that together.
It was really good of her. It was really, and it was very sensible, and it was very, like, you know, all props to her. I just think, like, we were just so cocky. And we were just like, nothing will ever happen to us. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I don't know where this stupid mindset came from.
We were two 18-year-old girls going off.
Thought we knew, because we were just like 18 at that age. I don't know about anyone else who's 18, but for us, we were like, we've reached adulthood now. Like, we know what we're doing. We did have that attitude, and looking back, it's shocking and not okay.
No.
I do remember, though, learning about the eye contact and staring someone down. And I remember using that outside one of the supermarkets. Very cool.
Real rough and tumble stuff.
Yeah. But thankfully, I will just say now, we didn't get into any scrapes where we did need to use any kind of self-defense, did we?
Yeah. So Rachel, how did you feel in this sort of like lead up to us going on this trip?
Oh,
like,
my God. So excited.
What were your emotions? What emotions were you processing?
Oh my gosh, I was mad excited. I felt like Dora the Explorer. I had all my things ready. I had the currency ready. Do you remember, like, on the lead up of being like, okay, we've got a flight ticket? I even remember the point of paying for that flight ticket, which was about $2,000, and be like, I've never spent $2,000 or even held $2,000 in my whole life. Wow. And I remember all these like leaving parties that we had. All our friends got together in the pub, and we had a lovely meal with everyone. Then they were all back from uni, getting a few cards, and then I remember going to my nan's house, and she put together a lovely meal, going away meal, and I got presented a little travel book, and everybody in the family like wrote me a little note, which was just it was just really meant a lot to me that I had that. And I think it was really hitting the family that I was going, and they were all like really excited and pleased, and it was just a time for celebration, really. And yeah, what about you? The enthused person.
My feelings were mainly sort of like, I mean, as an anxious person, obviously anxiety was the main, you know, the headline act of my emotions in the week preceding. I mainly was feeling nervous. I know this is not so much the vibe that you were after, but
I was just like bouncing.
I was mainly, you clearly were very excited. I think I just couldn't get my head around the idea that this was going to be our lives for like 5 months. I think that's what I was struggling with, because it's like when you go on holiday, you can like sort of envisage the beginning and the end, and it's quite a manageable amount of time. But like 5 months just seemed like an absolutely insane amount of time, and I just couldn't quite get my head around that. And I was just thinking, I was really worried about feeling homesick. Obviously we did have some really nice leaving things, and everyone was really sweet and everyone was supportive. I don't think my family weren't quite to the levels that your family did, in that I don't remember any sort of like leaving dinner or any kind of like gifts or whatever. But you know, I think they were aware.
Yeah, like we all drove each other to the airport. I remember that, and we were meeting there
together.
And your mum helped you pack and had that. Yeah.
I like how you're like, your family were actually supportive. To your family. I just don't feel that it was the same sort of levels of like, you know, anticipation that perhaps you experienced. But I do remember that I was really worried about feeling homesick, and
that's
and then I was thinking to myself, like, how am I gonna combat the homesickness when I'm away? Because obviously, like, back then it was going to be a lot harder to be able to speak to people back home. We knew that, because we, you know, as we will
didn't have WhatsApp
as we
back
will
then.
detail. No, and also we didn't even bother to buy like any sort of data roaming or anything, or any kind of SIM cards.
No, God, no, we never did that. Never.
So we just had like defunct mobiles. I remember like we took them for reasons unknown. And mine died after 2 days, and I don't think I ever saw you
with your phone like once.
Just didn't charge it. Just left it at the bottom of my bag with
Can you believe that?
Water-purification tablets.
If I go one day without my phone, I can't. Yeah, I can't function.
I don't know why we thought that was a good idea, especially since we would at some point probably need to contact each other. But we were just
just never did we? So irresponsible. We didn't even have walkie-talkies. That was
Who
really
has
unsafe.
walkie-talkie?
But you know what I mean? Like, if we were separated.
Come
In
in,
fact,
Rachel.
okay, no. I was going to
Roger that,
share.
Rachel.
I was going to share a story then, but no, that's for the podcast.
But yeah, so I was trying to think of ways that I could sort of self-soothe if I did feel homesick. And the method I came up with was I had one of those iPods at the time that had like, you know, like they were quite old.
The scrolly ones.
Yeah, but it had like a screen, like it had a proper sort of digital screen, so that it wasn't like, I don't know the terms. It wasn't like, you know, where it had like basically just black and white, essentially. It was like a proper screen. It wasn't a touch.
Okay.
I really need to get bogged down in what kind of iPod it was.
All right, okay.
But basically you could download visuals onto it and watch them.
Photos, didn't you? Didn't you have like TV shows on it?
No, what I did, Rachel, was I downloaded, and like, because I didn't have much memory on this iPod, I had room for only 3 episodes of it, but I downloaded 3 episodes of a show that I was like, this will be the show that makes me feel the most comforted and like I'm back home. And what show do you think that was? I mean, you know what it was. This is
was it The In-Betweeners?
And yeah, that got me through. I mean, but anyway, that wasn't quite the question. So
no, but I think that's a very relevant thing.
I felt mainly just nervous, but I knew it was going to be like a really
it was scary for sure. It was like
thing.
Really intense. I felt like I was like, this is going to sound so stupid, I felt like I was just like moving to literally a whole new life. Like I felt like I was going away from Stortford. I felt very cool. I felt almost like, this is going to sound stupid, but I felt very like special. I was like, I'm going away. Like,
I know, almost like
lame,
we were, like,
lame,
the
so
prodigal
lame.
children of
Yeah,
Stortford,
when
like,
no,
hi Stortford,
we worked hard.
We've made it.
We worked hard. We made a decision. We followed it through. Like, that is what people do all the time, day in, day out, every day. That does not make us special, but it did have this kind of I think it's because just nobody else we knew were really doing this, but no one like was with us in the same boat. But another thing that I was worrying about, which I'm sure I told you, but I was like, I've never spent time with one person for as long with 5 months. And like, how is that going? Because at the end of the day, we only had each other. Like, we couldn't just, as you said, go home to like our mum if something had happened. You know, we had to have each other's backs the whole way through. And I don't know if that was something that you worried about. It was just, I
think maybe subconsciously I was worried about that. But yeah, especially considering we didn't have functioning mobiles, we had to literally stay together at all times.
Yeah, we did. We actually did I think there was one day we didn't see each other and it was weird.
Yeah, like I think you're right. I think it was a pretty regular thing, wasn't it? It was you and I together.
Yeah,
that is quite a big thing, really, when you think about it. And of course we met people along the way that kind of diluted.
Yeah, it brought a different like flavour to the dynamic and stuff, and that was really fun.
But yeah, like it was a big thing to undertake, to be with the same person constantly for 5 months. And not just, you know, and it's different, isn't it, when you go away like into the unknown, as it were. You cling to that person, you rely on that person, and your priorities change, and you have to navigate that world with another person. And I think that is it's a bonding experience, and it could have gone either way. But clearly for us it's worked out. But...
Yeah, it did. It brought us pretty much to like sisterhood level, I would say. Right, guys, I feel like we've come to the end of those questions. I really hope that has sponged up some context of why we did it, you know, our motives for going, and you know, on what's going to happen on the next episode. What we doing?
Well, this next episode is the very first entry of the blog, which is what brings this whole shebang together, is the actual blog at the heart of all of this. Yeah. So the next episode we will be reading a bit from that blog. Oh my god, exciting. But yeah, so that is what you've got to look forward to in the next ep. Rachel and I, fresh off the plane, landing in San Jose, Costa Rica, going into our first hostel.
I'm excited. I'm excited to relive it and go back and relive the lols.
Starting from the very beginning. In the meantime, if you're hungry for more, you can follow us on Instagram at Gap Year Diaries Podcast. And you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Saying podcast a million times.
Yep.
So follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Podcast.
And if you'd like, it'd be lovely if you left a little review, little star. That would be really nice. Brighten up our days.
An honest review.
Yeah.
But yes, thanks guys.
No, thank you very
for
much.
listening, and we'll see you for the next ep very soon. Very
soon.
very soon. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks guys. Peace out. Bye. Bye, Emily.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.